You made the list. You checked the boxes. The promotion, the dream trip, the perfect house. You did it all. So why, in the quiet moments after the celebration, does a hollow echo of, "Now what?" seem to get louder? What if the very map you used to find happiness was leading you to the wrong destination all along? Let's explore the bucket list trap and what Carl Jung can teach us about finding a joy that doesn't vanish at the finish line. This is more than just a video about goals. It is the first step on a journey inward, a journey to deconstruct the life you were told you should want in order to discover the life your soul is truly asking you to live. This feeling of emptiness is not a sign of your failure. It is a sacred invitation, a signal that you are ready for a deeper kind of work, a work that doesn't ask what more you can achieve, but asks who you are beneath it all. This is the beginning of what Jung called shadow work. It is the start of a quiet revolution, a revolution not against the world, but for yourself. And it begins not with a grand gesture, but with a simple, courageous question. A question this journey will help you answer.
The finish line is a ghost. We spend our lives running towards it, believing that on the other side lies a state of lasting peace, a permanent arrival. Psychologists have a name for this belief. They call it the arrival fallacy, the illusion that once we attain that long-sought goal, the promotion, the soulmate, the perfect body, we will finally have made it, and we will be happy forever. Our modern culture is built upon the altar of this fallacy. It worships productivity. It glorifies the hustle. And it has given us a sacred text for this religion of achievement. The bucket list. A checklist for a life well lived. A map that promises to lead us to the treasure of fulfillment. But as so many of us have discovered, in the quiet, lonely aftermath of our greatest victories, this map is a beautiful liar. Let me tell you about a man I once spoke with. Michael, 48 years old, a successful architect. For 2 decades, his life had one singular focus: to build his dream house. It was more than a house. It was a symbol, a monument to his hard work, his taste, his arrival into the upper echelons of his profession. He obsessed over every detail: the Italian marble, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the handcrafted cabinetry. It was his bucket list, all in one item. And then, he finished it. He moved in. He threw a lavish party. His friends and colleagues were in awe. He had done it. He had arrived. He told me that about a month later, he was standing in his perfect minimalist kitchen, the morning sun streaming through the giant windows just as he had designed. And he was overcome by a wave of something he could not name. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't disappointment. It was nothing. A profound, hollow, and terrifying emptiness. The question that rose from that emptiness was the one we all fear. Is this it? The emotional cycle of the arrival fallacy is a cruel roller coaster. First, there is the delicious thrill of anticipation, the dream of the future. This is where we live most of our lives. Then comes the pursuit, the hard work, the sacrifice, the feeling of purpose. This feels like life itself. Then, if we are lucky, there is the fleeting moment of arrival, a brief, intoxicating hit of satisfaction, the celebration, the congratulations, the relief. And then, inevitably, comes the crash. The return to baseline. The silence after the party ends. And in that silence, the emptiness creeps in. The ghost of the finish line has vanished, and we are left alone with ourselves. So what do? We do the only thing our culture has taught us. We frantically search for the next goal, the next list, the next mountain to climb. We become addicts of the chase because the arrival is too terrifying to bear. We are ghosts in our own present moment, our life force perpetually invested in a future that never truly arrives. To understand why this happens, we must turn to the great cartographer of the soul, Carl Jung. Jung would say that this entire game is the domain of one part of your psyche, the ego. The ego is your conscious mind, the manager of your identity. It is the part of you that sets goals, that seeks external validation, that wants to build a respectable, successful life. And it is not your enemy. It is a necessary and vital part of your psychological machinery. Its primary function is to create a sense of control, of order, of forward momentum. The ego lives in the future. Its native language is when, then. When I get the promotion, then I will be worthy. When I lose the weight, then I will be lovable. When I finish the house, then I can finally rest. The bucket list trap is the ego's ultimate game. It is a perfect mechanism for keeping us perpetually chasing, ensuring we are never truly present, never truly home. Because to the ego, to arrive is to die. Its entire sense of purpose is tied up in the journey towards. But you are more than your ego. There is a deeper, wiser, and more ancient part of your being. A part that does not care about your to-do list. It is not interested in the next achievement. It is interested only in this moment. And the emptiness you feel, that hollow egg that Michael felt in his perfect kitchen, is not a sign that you have failed. It is a whisper, or sometimes a scream from that deeper part of you. A message that the map you are using is leading you further and further away from the only treasure that was ever real.
It is a quiet, terrifying moment. The moment the applause fades and you are left alone with the prize, and you realize the prize has no heart. This emptiness is not a void to be filled with another goal. It is an opening to be entered. What if this feeling is not a symptom that your life has gone wrong, but a signal that your soul is trying to get it right? We have spoken of the ego, the part of you that plays the game of achievement, but you are more than your ego. There is a deeper, wiser, and more ancient center within you. A center that Jung called the self. The self is the totality of your being, the center of your psyche, the source of true meaning, and the architect of wholeness. It is the part of you that was there before the world told you who you should be, before the report cards, the job titles, and the 5-year plans. It is your original face. And the ego and the self speak two entirely different languages. The ego asks, "What can I achieve?" The self asks, "Who am I becoming?" The ego seeks to do. The self seeks to be. The ego lives in the future, in the land of when then. The self lives only here, in the sacred, unrepeatable miracle of now. The bucket list trap is the ego's game. But this profound emptiness you feel, this is the self's whisper, or sometimes its scream. It is a form of soul sickness, a message that your life's precious energy is being spent on the wrong currency.
You have been feeding the ego with achievements, while yourself is starving for meaning. Let me tell you about Sarah, a lawyer in her early 40s. From the outside, her life was a fortress of success. Top of her class, partner at a prestigious firm, beautiful apartment. She had checked every box on the list she had made for herself at age 22. When she came to me, it was not because of a dramatic crisis. It was because of a quiet, creeping sense of unreality. Her life, she said, felt like it was being lived in black and white. She would win a major case and feel a brief flicker of relief, but no joy. She would go on expensive vacations and spend the whole time thinking about the next item on her itinerary. The sound of her own laughter felt foreign. She confessed something that chilled me. She said, "I feel like I'm the lead actress in a movie about my own life, but I never read the script and I don't know my lines." Her persona was flawless, but her soul was suffocating. The emptiness she felt was the self's final, desperate attempt to get her attention. It was a sacred protest, a circuit breaker designed to stop a life that looked perfect but felt meaningless. This is the realization that the emptiness is not the end of the story. It is the plot twist. It is the moment the hero realizes they have been climbing the wrong mountain. The solution is not to climb faster. The solution is to find a new map. The language of the self is not found in goals, but in meaning. It is found in connection, in presence, in the quiet joy of a process, not the loud celebration of a product. The whisper of the self does not tell you what to achieve. It asks you what makes you feel alive. It does not ask what your 5-year plan is. It asks what is true for you in this one single breath. For most of our lives, we are conditioned to listen only to the shouts of the ego. We become deaf to the quiet guidance of the self. This soul sickness, this emptiness, is a form of spiritual deafness. It is the silence that remains when we have achieved everything the ego wanted, only to realize we have lost connection to the one voice that ever truly mattered. So how do we begin to listen again? How do we retrain our ears to hear this quiet, subtle music of the soul? How do we honor the ego's need for structure without letting it run the entire show? The answer is not to abandon goals. It is to transform them from masters into tools, and to begin the sacred, practical work of shifting our entire way of being, from a life of doing to a life of becoming.
The journey home to the self is not a grand voyage to a distant land. It is a quiet turning, a gentle shift in the quality of your attention from the future to the now, from the noise of achieving to the music of being. The first question that arises is often one of fear. Does this mean I must abandon all my goals, my ambitions? The answer is no. Goals are not the enemy. The ego's need for structure and forward momentum is a vital part of our human nature, but our relationship to them must change. They must be transformed from masters into tools, from the destination that defines our worth to a compass that simply gives our journey a direction. So how do we begin this shift in practice? We start with small, sacred acts of presence. Let's begin with a practice I call process over product. Think about a simple daily ritual, making your morning coffee, perhaps. For most of us, this is a mindless, utilitarian act. The ego's approach is make the coffee, drink the coffee, get the caffeine, start the day. It is a means to an end. The practice of the self
is to fall in love with the process. Tomorrow morning, I invite you to try this. As you make your coffee, bring your full gentle attention to it. Notice the sound of the water, the aroma of the beans, the warmth of the mug in your hands. For the first 3 sips, do nothing else. No phone, no planning, no worrying. Simply be present with the sensation of warmth, of taste. In that small, quiet moment, you are not doing, you are being. You are gently rewiring your brain, teaching it that fulfillment is not a future event, but a present moment possibility. You are taking a mundane act and turning it into a meditation. The second tool is a beautiful act of psychological rebellion. It is called the reverse bucket list. The ego's bucket list is a catalog of what is missing. It is a monument to a future conditional happiness. The reverse bucket list is a treasure map of the happiness that is already here. Let's return to Michael, the architect with the perfect empty house. When I suggested this practice to him, he was skeptical. It felt silly, childish, but he was desperate, so he agreed to try. For a week, his only task was to write down each evening 3 things he already had or experienced that day that brought him a quiet, simple joy. His first list was almost painfully simple. The taste of my first cup of coffee, the warmth of my dog sleeping on my feet, the silence of the house just before sunrise. By the end of the week, his list had grown in richness and depth. The way the afternoon light hit the spine of my favorite book, a 5-minute conversation with my sister where we really connected, the feeling of solving a difficult design problem at work, not for the praise, but for the joy of the puzzle itself. Do you see what was happening? Michael was training his brain to recognize existing happiness, rather than chasing future happiness. He was not acquiring anything new. He was simply learning to see the treasures he already owned. He was discovering that his life was not empty at all. He had just been looking in the wrong direction. His magnificent house was not the source of his happiness, but it could be a beautiful container for the small, sacred, present moments that were. And this leads us to the final, most profound practice, asking deeper questions. The ego asks tactical questions. What do I want to achieve? The self asks existential questions. Who do I want to be? And the shift from one to the other can change your entire life. Let me tell you about Chloe, the nurse. Her ego's question every single week was, how can I get through all my shifts, manage the kids' schedules, and keep the house in order? It was a question of survival, and it was exhausting. In our work, she began to practice asking a new question. Before she walked into a patient's room, instead of thinking about her checklist, she would pause, take a breath, and ask, who do I want to be while I am with this person? The answer that came from her deeper self was always simple. I want to be a presence of calm, of compassion, of grace. This new question did not change her tasks, but it transformed the quality of her experience. Her job was no longer a series of boxes to be checked. It became a series of opportunities to embody the person she most wanted to be. Her work became her practice. Her doing became her being. This is the path. It is a quiet, gentle turning, again and again, back to the life that is right here. The great Indian poet Tagore wrote of spending a fortune to travel the world to see mountains and oceans, only to return home and fail to see the single dewdrop on a blade of grass right outside his own door. The treasure was never at the finish line. It was in the dewdrop all along. And learning to see it is the beginning of a truly successful life. So we arrive, not at a finish line, but at a new beginning, a new way of seeing, a new way of living. We have deconstructed the myth of the bucket list. We have seen that the frantic chase for future happiness is a game designed by the ego, a game that we can never truly win. And we have heard the quiet, persistent whisper of the self, inviting us to a different kind of life. This is the moment we redefine what a successful life truly means. It is not a life measured by the number of boxes checked, or the miles traveled, or the titles acquired. A truly successful life is measured by the depth of presence and meaning experienced along the way. It is a life measured not in achievements, but in moments of genuine aliveness. And the great liberation in this is that you can stop running. You can finally put down the heavy burden of the next great thing. The pressure to be more, to have more, to do more begins to dissolve. And in its place, a quiet richness can be found. A richness hidden in the ordinary, in the dewdrop on the blade of grass. The frantic search ends not because you have found all the answers, but because you have started asking better questions. Not, what can I get from this moment? But who can I be in this moment? Not, how can I achieve happiness? But where can I find the happiness that is already here? This is the essence of Pillar 3. The understanding that the ultimate power is the power to be present in your own life, to inhabit the home of the here and now. This does not mean a life without ambition. It means an ambition that is sourced from a deeper place, an ambition to grow, not just to acquire, an ambition to become, not just to do. Goals become our tools, not our masters, and our worth is no longer tied to the outcome. So, as we close this first chapter of our journey together, I invite you to one final, small act of rebellion against the tyranny of the finish line. Identify one goal you're chasing right now. Just one. And for today, just for today, consciously let go of the outcome. Release the need for it to be a success or a failure. Instead, simply focus on bringing a sense of presence, of curiosity, of quiet joy to the process of working towards it. Notice what shifts within you. Notice the freedom. This is your first step on the new path. But this relentless pressure to achieve, to build a life that looks good, where does it come from? Who is the audience for this performance? It comes from the mask we all wear, the heavy, carefully constructed face we show the world in order to be accepted, to be loved, to succeed. And in our next journey together, we will ask a courageous question. What is the price we pay for wearing it?